responsibility obligations. And these companies that hire these people then are really following through. Now we have an international committee working on the project, and down in Spain is part of this committee. We have our counterparts in Italy and our counterparts in Portugal as well. Various universities are also helping out because they're establishing the theory behind the whole project. But really, it's the European Down syndrome institutions and local institutions who are training these people with Down syndrome and who are going out to the hotels and to the industry and training them as well. Now, these hotels and restaurants consider this project to give them a competitive advantage. Many of them want to join us because we are going to offer them a seal of approval that's going to become very famous. I certainly hope it does. And there are 3 countries that are participating in this project. These are the 3 countries that receive the greatest number of tourism throughout Europe. Now, Italy, and of course, was the creator of the project, but Spain and Portugal are also participating. And we think something is also happening like this in Germany, but we'd like it to spread throughout Europe as well. In a couple of years' time, we hope that hotels and restaurants that participate in initiatives like this one will have our approval, our seal of approval. Now, we have developed 3 tools to promote this project. One is an application for a mobile phone or for a tablet. Another tool are the videos that we distribute to hotels to show to their staff. And then we have a quality kit. It consists of a code that the companies that are participating have to adhere to, and then we provide our seal of approval. These 3 tools are helping us meet our goals. The application is not really a follow-up. Well, it is a follow-up food tool. It's not really a control tool. It's a tool that makes it clear to the people with Down syndrome who are working in these hotels, understand exactly what jobs they need to be doing. Now, when somebody begins working, somebody with Down syndrome can memorize the things they have to do. I have to make beds from 10 to 11, for example. What tool am I going to need to do that? So it's very simple. Now, the videos were developed because it turns out when somebody with intellectual disability goes to a company, people have questions. People wonder how to deal with them. The rest of the staff doesn't really know how to treat this person. How should they give them orders? What language should they use? Well, to address this issue, we've developed 14 different videos that we distribute among our participating companies so that they can show to their staff. And I wish I had time to show you one of these videos, but I'm afraid I won't be able to. And finally, we have our quality kit, whereby the companies have to sign our code of conduct, and if they do comply with all of our standards, they will receive our seal of approval. Well, so it is all by all working together that we will be able to include people with Down syndrome into the labor market. This is just an example of something that we're doing. Now, when we select people to participate, we use non-discrimination measures. So we can't say we accept people with Down syndrome. That would be discrimination, obviously. In other words, that we go out and talk to associations that represent people with disabilities. We work through our local administrations, and awareness raising is extremely important here. One of the other reasons that we developed our videos. Now, the commitments on part of all the parties have to be demonstrated with a whole series of evidence that can be checked through our code of conduct. And then if a hotel wants to receive our seal approval, then they must comply with all of these points. We have 3 categories of the seal: the bronze, the silver, and the gold seal, depending on the commitment of the enterprise. And now our general policy is to include in our workforces people with disability. People who get the bronze medal then accept people to do a practicum with them, and they guarantee and if they want to move up to silver, then rather than offering their installations for people to do a practicum, then they actually hire somebody with Down syndrome. And a gold seal would go to a company that has not only a contract with people with disability, but also who agree to be ambassadors and attract other companies in their sector to our program and to our project. And if they can do this in the period of 2 years, then they will get the gold seal. So, of course, we have to go through a process. We have to look at all the different applications for the project. We have to establish a series of commitments such as the ones I've just mentioned. We have to actually follow up and make sure that the companies that are participating are indeed complying with all of these commitments, and it takes 2 years to go through the whole process. So every 2 years, then we follow up on the companies and make sure that they're doing what they are supposed to be doing. And then we go to the company. If they continued meeting their commitments, then we will renew their seal, and they can move up through our categories. If, for example, if they actually extend a contract rather than just offering a practicum to a person with Down syndrome, then they'll go up to the next category, which is silver, and they can work up to being ambassadors and get the gold seal, etc. But if they don't do it, then we remove the seals. And we have received proposals from many different countries to participate in programs like this one. And here we have a scoop. And I think that in 2017 and 2018, all of the hotels that you stay in have this seal, the valuable seal. Valuable, that means something that has value, of course. And it means that you are able to provide value. So this is our gold seal. I think you can see it very well up there on the screen. And here you have the bronze and the silver seals as well. We look at these lovely plaques that you can put in your hotel. Well, you can put it where you have your trophies. You can have it in your reception area, and it looks great wherever you want to display it. Now, apart from working with hotels, and we want hotels to become ambassadors of this project, let me also throw out a proposal. I'd like for you to go back to your organizations and your social circles and you talk about these projects. Perhaps you know hotel managers, for example, or perhaps you know people in training centers, people who work in the social economy, or then maybe you yourselves fit these descriptions. So please send your suggestions to our email address, which you have right up here, and bring in more people to participate in our project. Now, a few months from now, in July in 2017, before the project is finished, we will be introducing the seal, and we will be awarding the seals to the first hotels that have earned them. We have hotels in Zaragoza, in Valencia, and Madrid, and in Murcia, I believe, who are all working with us on our project. Now, last week we presented these hotels to all of the members of our federation, and they're going to be disseminating all manner of information about the project in their local settings. So, thank you very much for letting me explain about this program here. Now, this is an international. This is an international project, so welcome to our hotels, and as the way we like to see it is welcome. Thank you so much, Guillermo, for talking about this very interesting experience of how you can actually use European funds and deploy them in a specific European project to provide employment for people, in this case with Down syndrome. And other people are going to be telling us exactly what they're talking about. Our next speaker
de ámbito nacional y es el coordinador
is Pierre Larry, who is representing ADAP, and he's going to be telling us his experience. The floor is yours.
For employer staff and everyone to accept us at your international conference. To present this very shortly, our aim is to promote a career for people with disabilities. As you know, the term of career is quite aware for everyone, but people with disabilities, we are talking of actions, they are users, there are a lot of things, but they can't have any careers. So our purpose is how to define a career for people with disability. First of all, we defined several axes to work on this program, European program. The first one was to search in Europe promising practices, not good practices, but promising practices about career, how we can involve career for people with disability. And one of our topics was to clear up transitions between schooling and access to training to employment, maintain a job, and so on and so on. But not only. We consider that in this program that going to the work is a part of life, and due to the UNCAPD, it's really a part of life because just around the work you have to act on mobility, on accessibility, on culture, sport, and so on and so on. So the good practices reveal certain topics about the capacity of service providers to enlarge their point of view and the way they have to observe and define the action plans to promote careers. The second axis was to define on a human resource point of view the necessary training for the professionals. When we are talking about professional, it's not only social workers, but only all partners in enterprise, in trade unions, and so on, which are able to work with people with disabilities all the way along. And so we define and create a toolbox. We will improve it in the next months all around Europe. To test the produce, first of all, but to change the mind. Our objective is not only to continue to do exactly what we are doing, it's to do it considering that UNCAPD is a basis. And if UNCAPD is a basis, we are talking about rights of people and rights and the expression of these rights all the life long. So our work is based on UNCAPD, access to work, and maintenance at work. This way, we accept clearly to search and use the best practices existing. For example, we decide that supported employment was a basis of our strategy. It's a part of career, and it's a useful part of career, but not only. The third axis was very simple. When we are talking about employment, when we are talking about career, we are talking about job, we are talking about enterprise. We are sure that it's not clear to work on these topics without enterprise. So we decide to promote one action we as l'ADAPT deliver in France for 20 years now, and to enlarge this action to our European partner. This action is named EDU, Employment Disability European Week, and this action has several topics. First of all, to work with enterprise, which are the employers, first of all, and to not only to have a sensibilization, but action and concrete action to enhance the employment for people with disabilities, job dating, and the cafe. You have seen one, the first one in Valencia with Mark and economical and people with disabilities, and to try to make them gather in one project. Action on enterprise, action on environment. Our principle about CDU is to do it and let it know. So we organize public manifestation clearly in enterprise, in Congress, as in Valencia yesterday, but in the street too, in the media too, and we. Our goal is to say that talking and acting about career is not a question of specialists, it's a question of everybody. All of us, we have in our neighborhood some people with disabilities, children or adults, and it's a part of the world, a complete part. So the medias, all the medias, intellectual medias I am talking about, must be introduced in the job. And then we have decided to act on a politic view. So politics, enterprise, and civil society. Politics, for example, we each year we decide what exactly we will do, and each year too we communicate about your concrete work and concrete results. For example, last year it was at the European Parliament in Brussels. This year it was at the UNESCO, and next year I clearly don't know at the moment, but it will be in a special area, and we will try to mix, as we have done it last year's, 30% of enterprise, 30% of people with disabilities and representatives of civil society, and 30% of enterprise. So, and politics, sorry. For us, it's very important to mix all the public to talk about the same thing at the same moment and to give results, because we have to give results. Our action is quite finished at the moment. We have 6 months to finish this program. For us, as it has been told by Fernando and Michael yesterday, we completely know that talking about career and talking about supported employment as a matter of fact, as very useful to carry out careers, it's not enough, and we have to act on political level. And so we have a partner as EASPD in this program, and our action, not next action, is to carry out some lobbying to make local legislation, local government legislation, act really the factor of non-discrimination. It's completely abnormal that, for example, supported employment is not funded as with a durability. This action is 20 years old, and every time, everybody says, hey, I have no funds to continue. It's a non-discrimination action. Non-discrimination is acted by UN nations, by Europe, by the governments, and the laws are not changing. We are preserving institution and not, for example, initiative as supported employment. So it will be a part of the next program. You love the season 1, you will have the season 2 of DESC with maybe the same partner and others to make our intention a durability. It's not a one-shot action, it will be a several-shot action.
Gracias, Rivière. Ahora, si hemos visto otro ejemplo concreto.
Very, very briefly, what I'm going to do now is, just as briefly as I can, I am going to speak to you about one of our own experiences. I'm Marc Caballero, and I am an expert in European projects in the Empleo Foundation. And so what we would like to do is tap the opportunities that we are offered through through Europe to be able to promote employment for people with disabilities.
Bueno, pues parece que no, ¿no? Ok, está aquí, está hablando el dispositivo. Bueno, en todo caso,
Well, independently of whether the technology accompanies me or not, and so we really are so far behind our schedule that we won't wait any further. So very, very briefly, without our visuals, then I'm going to tell you about our project, which is part of the Erasmus Plus lines. I think this is one of the lines that's really made it possible for us to promote projects that are working towards the inclusion into the job market, beginning from the premise that self-employment is one way for people with disability to become employed. Now, see, this is just one of the many different ways there are for these people to become employed. So I'm not saying that it is the one and only option. I also don't mean that this is the best option, not in the least. It's simply one more option to consider. So on the basis of this premise, then we find that, in fact, today, in our country at least, I'm speaking from my country, but I think there are many other countries in our situation, we do not have the tools, or we don't believe that we have the necessary tools to help people with disability to become self-employed. So this is the social need that we have detected. So we believe that we do not have those tools, and this is the diagnosis that we have made. And there are various organizations throughout Europe who are working in supported employment. Then we decided to try to develop an intervention model and develop these tools with European aid. And so that is why we have been working with a Belgian organization, an organization from Slovenia, another one from Portugal. And we are working with the EUSE, which is the European Union for Supported Employment. And we've been working with them and together on a project, and I'm going to tell you about its final objectives. What we're trying to do at this point is decide what type of an intervention we need to design. We're looking around throughout Europe and seeing what's going on. Who is actually promoting entrepreneurship with people with functional diversity, and what are the actions that are getting the best results? So we've been to Flanders and Belgium. We see that employment for people with disability is not a separate program, but rather it is a mainstreamed program which is part of the employment services of Flanders, and which simply provides some extra services to people who need them, so that those people who within the general entrepreneurship program then can receive special support, for example, things to help them overcome their disability. And so we looked around to see what other people were doing, as I say, and developed our own model to design an intervention in these people so that we would have some guidelines of how we could help professionals who are supporting with people with disability in the world of entrepreneurship. Now, once we have developed this model, as I say, it's still on the drawing board. We're still going to be working on it throughout 2017. And So not only do we hope to finish this leg of the work in our published guidelines, we also want to actually put together a training manual that will be available to any organization that is interested in finding out what it is we have learned. And hope that by mid-2017 we can organize a course, a training course that that will go to employment coaches, to support workers, and so that we can introduce them to our methodology to help follow people and support them through their employment careers. So I'd just like to point out that we have 3 examples of specific projects that have used European financing to provide supportive employment and inclusion of people with disability into the labor market. And now we think that these projects are very important. This financing is very important, not only for specific projects, but also when these projects can give rise to policies that are adopted on the local level and particularly in places, decentralized countries like our own, that can be adopted on the regional level where these types of policies must be adopted. But not only that, these projects, the results of the projects can help us in our lobbying activities in Brussels as well. And we also want these projects to, as it were, trickle down into European legislation. And once again, so that they can improve legislation. That's why we have 2 people here with us who are going to then give us the vision from here. We have Jan Konka from the regional government of inclusion policies, and he is going to explain how here at our regional government level, then European funds are being deployed. Juan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation as well, and just leaving some space to participate, and also to create these type of spaces where we can exchange different types of policies and can also see how we can jointly work together in a better way. I know there's a lot of pressure because now the administration, we have to move now and just do all the initiatives, and I know that this pressure is good also. I'm Jan Konka, I'm the assessor of the Vice President of the Regional Ministry and for inclusive policies, and I'll tell you about the European Social Fund. It's one of the structural funds that the European Union has, and its aim is one of the main pillars in the European level, which is employment. It's important, but that's not the only element of this social sort of pillar. Now, in this process of developing these projects, one of the first measures is that in the financial framework 2014-2020, we have included a reserve of 20% of this European Social Fund for the fighting against social exclusion. And then, for the first time, from the Regional Ministry of Inclusion, we are managing this way. We are not doing it from the Education Regional Ministry. Right, this is the first pillar. Why are we managing, and what's the difference and the added value we can give to manage this operational program and not the employment services? Basically, we've tried to complement the work that the employment service is already doing. They have like 13 times more budget than we have, so we obviously cannot have the same we don't have the same tools. Our work and our objectives is to develop the abilities for those people who are excluded socially, and they can at a certain moment access to this integration into employment actually. And how do we do it? Well, I've been here in the experience roundtables, and we will do it with something that you know, which is integrated and sort of paths for labor integration. We are not inventing here, reinventing the wheel. We'll be just supporting the ideas and the projects that you're already doing. So basically, our paths are not innovative. We are not inventing anything, as I say. We give a lot of value to the diagnosis. It's very important for us that anyone joining the project has a good map why they should be working in this project. It's important also that a good development is made about the different assistance socially, the basic competences, functional competences. Also that different studies are made, and we can also support to that sort of job, and we have to make it in an individualized way depending on the sectors that we're working with. And it's also very important to accompany those persons. This grant should be able to allow the funds to work with these people as well, to have these sort of work coaches. And why have we decided? Well, to have some grants with two different pillars, one for the sort of public agencies and other for the companies. What's the aim? Well, to recruit new people, which is already out there, but with no work. We have two objectives. The local corporations, we are very interested to work in specific neighbors, those social action neighborhoods, and we would like to focus on those areas that are very vulnerable. But we know that in a city, for example, we could have this sort of average situation. We always have some neighborhoods that are more sort of well off, and other that are sort of stricken by poverty. And that's why today we have solved the first round of calls. We have 15 municipalities. Valencia is within them. Alfredo and myself, we've been discussing today how to sort of manage this grant. We have selected 15 neighborhoods in the Valencian region in order to start this work. Why are we looking? What are we aiming to in the other pillar? What we look in the different companies to work with specific communities where the administrations cannot reach, and where we don't have as much experience as they would have. And what have we done? We've just give some grants to those associations that have been able to work with different specific communities, gypsies, it could be people with mental health, or people, homeless people, all the different types. It's been well open, so anyone who has a specific project can be part of it, and we will support these teams that are already working on this, so they will have a higher impact. We've solved the first call, and now we are starting, and hopefully next year I can come and share with you the good results. And also now in December we'll open a second call for the 2017 projects. This is part of the operative plan, so we will keep these grants until 2023, so if there's any associations, we'll be in contact. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Joan, for sharing your experience, and see how the administration has taken part of this as well. And now, this is a step further and now Timothy, how Europe is also offering the possibility to do some sort of lobby to influence in the service providers, and they can organize, so try that their demands are listened to by the administration, by Europe, and that these sort of everybody else is following tack. So, Timothy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mark. I know it's been a very long day and you're all very tired, so I will try to be brief and not too boring. So indeed, when you talk about people with disabilities, it's a very personal matter, it's an individual plan, but I'm convinced that it has a repercussion on the whole of society. It's not one person, it's not one family, it's not one company that has to become more inclusive in society, and we have to work at every level. And we have had very good examples of how to implement more inclusive employment in the company, and very interesting projects. It was very good to hear the municipality of Valencia developing projects on inclusion and allocating a certain part on social inclusion. And we are at ESPD working on inclusion for people with disabilities at European level. So ESPD is the European Association of Service Providers for People with Disabilities. And that means that we represent over 12,000 organizations throughout the European continent with over 185... Slower. Okay. Sorry. I will look a bit that way now to check. I will talk slower. I was trying to move on so that you could go back to your evening, but so the European Association of Service Providers for Persons with Disabilities represent 12,000 organizations over Europe and across disability to promote service providers as tools and actors in the enjoyment of the rights of people with disabilities. Often we talk about how to give the right to people with disabilities, how they can join employment, but we have to remember that there must be support, there must be someone to accompany the person with disabilities in his best interest. And so we promote the rights of the person with disabilities and the implementation of the UN Convention through the support of the service providers. So we work on the 4 A's: accessibility, adaptability, availability and affordability of all services in order for people with disabilities to enjoy their own rights and to be able to choose their own services on their own terms. We are working on all topics. I will not enter into details, but just to mention that we have working groups on education, employment, early intervention, technology, inclusive living, and on all these aspects we have standing committees. And for example, here we have the Vice President of ESPD, who is also the Chair of the Committee on Employment, Mr. Fabrizio Fea, and we have Fundación Emplea, who is also an active member of ESPD in the field of employment. In each of these actions, we work on 3 main pillars. And it comes back to what I was saying earlier, the information part. We have the information from our members, which is crucial. In order for a good solution to be developed, we need the information from the grassroots, from the local level, from projects that are developed like Desk, like LADAPT, and like the organization down in España, to be able to transfer the information to the international level. Because there's too often a disconnection between what people are living and what are the needs of the sector and what policymakers think, believe, or know and understand. And there's also the opposite. We also work on informing our members of what is happening at European level, what are the funding opportunities, what are the political opportunities, what are the new legislative initiatives being developed. With that information, we try to have an impact. We use the information at our member level and the research that we develop to lobby the European level, so the Commission, the Parliament, the Council, but also support the lobbying effort of our members at national, regional, local level to give them the tools to convince or argue with the authorities to, for example, support supported employment or the inclusion of people with disabilities in the open labor market. And innovation, we are working on developing new projects. So on impact, we are working with a wide variety of partners at European level, at international level with the UN committee, and at the Council of Europe level. I will not go into too much detail at the moment. But we always work to provide disability policies that are inclusive and promoting the rights of people with disabilities. The objective of innovation, and here I come back to what was being said earlier, is to develop projects and develop research that develop the new ideas or promote ideas that are innovative throughout Europe. So, for example, a project like the European Week that was developed in France by l'ADAPT to promote it to other countries and to bring together countries from Italy, from Spain, and from Belgium, and to share that best practice and to upgrade it to European level. Likewise, to develop projects on education, on employment, on early intervention that identify new practices, develop them, scale them, and share them with other countries. Because projects are very interesting and very promising, like the project of down España, often have a hard time then to scale up to a European level or to other parts of Europe. We have often the partnership with the partner countries. In Desk it was 4 countries. I forgot how many countries there was in your project. But afterward, to disseminate beyond the borders is often difficult, and that's where ESPD also tries to bring together the different countries in Europe and share best practices, share the problems and the solutions that are developed with common challenges that we all face in the sector. And so we have been developing projects for the last 20 years. Briefly, we work on European policies, and just to list a few things that we have been working on and that have a direct impact on the employment of people with disabilities is, for example, the Youth Guarantee Program, where every young person under 26 should receive an offer of employment, education or training within 6 months. A skills guarantee is for people that haven't reached secondary education to receive further training, which is often the case for people with disabilities. Integration of the long-term unemployed, we can see that there's a direct link between having a disability and being long-term unemployed. And we have worked with the Council to ensure that a tailored approach is developed in the support to people that are trying to join the employment sector. Europe is also developing a pillar of social rights, trying to include a more social Europe, and a European semester, which is a tool to achieve the strategy of Europe of inclusive growth, which means that they do recommendation to each country to make changes in the macroeconomic policies, which used to cover austerity measures, for example, but where we try to include employment policies and to include inclusion of people with disabilities in the labor market, and including the UN Convention principles. I would like also to close with our next big event, to which I invite all of you, is the Supported Employment Conference that will be held in Belfast in cooperation with the EU that was already mentioned yesterday and today, and in collaboration between ESPD and EUs, and organized by the Standing Committee on Employment, where we'll have a 2-day conference on supported employment, with also a call for papers. So please, all of you and all your colleagues and friends, share the information. We are opening a call for papers. So if you would like to submit a paper on supported employment, please join us. And also we have the Employment Award that we do every 2 years. We already had in 2013 and 2015. and each time we identify promising practices to include people with disabilities in employment. And we will launch the call on the 7th December. Please send all your practices that are successful, and by 31st January, if you are selected, we will invite you to come speak at the conference to present the practice, and we will make a booklet presenting the 6 best practices in Europe. Okay, so for the call for papers, please send by December 15th. So it's quite short, but I'm sure you can make it. And otherwise, eventually, if you're a few days late, just send us an email saying you will promote something, just wait a bit more, so that you can be included. And that's all for me. I try to be as short as possible. And if you have any question, I will be very happy. Also, Fondation Emplea is a member of ESPD, so they also can inform you on all these matters at European level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Timothy. Bueno, pues aquí cerramos esta mesa donde hemos intentado, pues bueno, ofrecer algunos ejemplos de cómo Europa puede ayudar.
Us to develop the labor inclusion policies, and I don't know if there's any other questions. There's no microphone, so we cannot actually interpret, I'm afraid. Without a microphone, we cannot hear from the booth. No.
Sí, bueno, no sé.
No translation. No, just.
I just to tell you whether you wanted to talk about only until the 15th of December you can send proposals for this world conference in Belfast. Only the deadline is the 15th. So if anyone in here would like to draft any proposal, they could be able to take part in this conference, Support for Employment. Yes, he's also said that if there's a few days, you're back a few days, you can always send them an email. Anyway, thank you very much. I think there's a question here. Question for John Conca. I don't know whether I'm very tired, but I've just missed one bit of what you said. You said that you have selected 15 city halls, and in these 15 actions in neighborhoods. No, 15 city halls and one neighborhood per city hall. I haven't actually understood the first part. Have you selected it yourselves, or there's been oh no, we select the people, and we select the city halls in September. For the rest of, we are going to. There is a call now for the 2017. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
¿Alguna otra?
Any other question? Any? That's okay. Okay, so officially now we conclude this roundtable. Thank you very much for coming here and endure this long session. Thank you. Otro día satisfactorio.